Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you have ever dealt with a flooded basement, you know the absolute heart-dropping panic it causes. Today, we're breaking down a hyper-local issue that affects a ton of homeowners, but is honestly rarely understood on a scientific level. We are going to look at the specific risks of water damage right here in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. We'll explore the actual science behind restoration and look at the exact methodical steps that professionals use to save a home from permanent ruin. So if you've ever wondered what actually happens between a chaotic flooded basement and a fully restored living room, you are absolutely in the right place. Okay, let's just do a quick run through of our roadmap. We're going to start with Bethel Park's unique water risks, then decode the different categories of water. After that, we'll look at why immediate action is so critical, break down the three-phase restoration process, and finally, navigate the sometimes tricky world of insurance. Let's jump right in. Section 1, Bethel Park's water risks. We are starting right in your own neighborhood to see exactly why homes here are so incredibly vulnerable to flooding and leaks. So the really crucial thing to understand here is that Bethel Park's specific geography, when you pair it with older infrastructure, basically creates a perfect storm for constant water damage threats. Think about it. The clay-heavy soil throughout the South Park and Library neighborhoods acts almost like a paved road. It literally stops water absorption dead in its tracks, which sends surface runoff straight toward your foundation. Then, add in the steep terrain near Route 88, where water just flies downhill, plus the aging, single-stage sump pumps in those classic 1960s split levels over in Maywood. Put it all together, and you have a setup that makes these homes highly susceptible to nature's mood swings. 40 degrees. That's the massive temperature swing that can hit Pennsylvania in a single 24-hour period. And when temperatures plummet and spike like that, the physical stress on a house is just immense. Foundation walls can actually crack, which creates entry points for rising groundwater. Or worse, pipes sitting up in unheated crawl spaces or attics can instantly snap under the pressure. When that happens, hundreds of gallons of water can flood into a home before the main valve is ever shut off. Section 2. The categories of water. Now let's shift gears and look at the actual science of contamination, because this dictates exactly how the cleanup has to be handled. You know, the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification, or the IICRC, doesn't just casually group water together. These specific categories determine if your carpets can actually be saved or if they require full hazmat disposal. Category 1 is your clean water, like from a burst supply line, so it poses minimal health risks. Then we have Category 2, which is gray water. Think of a washing machine overflowing. This carries chemical or biological contaminants and definitely needs antimicrobial treatment. Finally, we have Category 3, which is black water. And guys, this is a biological hazard zone. We're talking grossly contaminated water from sewage or rising river floods. If Category 3 water touches anything porous, like carpet or drywall, those materials are completely destroyed and have to be safely thrown away. No exceptions. But here's the most critical piece of the contamination puzzle. You have to remember that time is literally your biggest enemy here. Relatively safe Category 2 water biologically degrades and escalates into highly contaminated Category 3 water in just 48 hours. So what starts as a simple, manageable appliance leak can turn into a completely toxic, hazardous environment in just 2 days if that water isn't extracted. Section 3. Why immediate action matters. That ticking clock perfectly transitions us into why every single minute counts when water breaches your foundation. 60 minutes. That is the guaranteed arrival time for emergency crews anywhere in Bethel Park. Now, why the massive rush? Because stopping water migration immediately prevents catastrophic secondary damage. Water spreads incredibly fast through porous materials. It moves from a single wet spot into unaffected rooms, climbs right up the drywall, and soaks deep into your subfloors. By getting heavy-duty, truck-mounted extraction pumps on site within an hour, professionals can actually halt that migration before it doubles or triples your restoration costs. And you can't just guess when a room is dry. Professionals use pin moisture meters to measure the exact water content deep inside the wood framing. They have to keep running their drying equipment continuously until that moisture drops below a strict 15% threshold. Dropping below that 15% mark is the absolute, non-negotiable scientific standard required to completely prevent microbial and mold growth moving forward. Section 4. The three-phase restoration process. Now that we understand the strict scientific standards at play, let's explore the methodical solution that pros use to rescue your property. It's a three-step protocol, and it ensures everything from the initial chaotic flooding to the final coat of paint is executed with absolute precision. Phase 1 is all about triage. emergency water removal just to stop the active damage. Phase 2 shifts to structural drying and daily monitoring, using those commercial dehumidifiers to reach the safe moisture levels we just talked about. Finally, Phase 3 is reconstruction, where drywall is replaced, floors are installed, and the home is brought completely back to its pre-loss condition, like it never even happened.
And doing this correctly requires heavy-duty science and technology. We are way beyond just pointing a box fan at a wet carpet here. Professionals deploy truck-mounted extraction pumps that can remove hundreds of gallons a minute. They use low-grain refrigerant dehumidifiers engineered specifically for deep structural drying. And, crucially, they use thermal imaging cameras. These are a real game changer because they can actually detect hidden moisture trapped behind your drywall without anyone having to tear the wall apart first.
Section 5. Navigating insurance and costs. Because fixing the physical damage is really only half the battle. We also need to understand how to financially navigate the aftermath with your insurance carrier. Okay, so there is a vital difference between two terms you are going to hear repeatedly: mitigation and restoration. Water damage mitigation focuses strictly on stopping the ongoing damage right now, extracting the water, setting up the drying equipment, and stabilizing the environment. Water damage restoration is the later process of physically rebuilding what was lost. Understanding this is key because insurance carriers often handle and cover the immediate emergency mitigation entirely separately from the longer-term structural restoration. To get those claims approved smoothly, documentation is absolutely everything. By utilizing robust daily documentation, detailed moisture maps, and comprehensive photo evidence, professionals ensure insurance adjusters have exactly what they need. They also use a standardized industry software called Xactimate for pricing. And why does that matter to you? Well, because it means the estimators are speaking the exact same language as your insurance adjusters. That ensures your claims get approved without a fight and often get billed directly to carriers like Nationwide, State Farm, or Erie. So what does this entire process actually look like on a calendar? This timeline sets a really clear, realistic expectation for the recovery journey. The emergency extraction happens in the first 24 hours. Then, the intensive structural drying takes roughly 3 to 7 days depending on how deep the saturation went. Finally, the reconstruction adds another 5 to 10 days. By laying it out this way, a completely overwhelming, chaotic disaster is transformed into a highly predictable 2 to 3 week path right back to normal life. So, I want to leave you with this one thought to consider. If a massive storm knocks out your sump pump tonight, are you prepared to act within that critical 24-hour window before irreversible mold growth takes over your home? I really hope this explainer has empowered you with the knowledge, the science, and the clear structural steps to act decisively and confidently the moment water threatens your property. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.